Hello, dear sleepyheads. Tonight we embark on a journey into the heart of an ancient world, a world carved in stone and whispered through jungle leaves. But before we begin, I just want to take a quiet moment to say thank you. If you truly enjoy these stories and they bring you peace, it would mean the world to me if you could like the video and subscribe. Your support helps this small channel grow and allows me to keep making these calm, immersive journeys into the past. Now, close your eyes and drift with me into the world of the Maya. 4,000 years ago, in the heart of what we now call Mesoamerica, small groups of people began to settle along the fertile riverbanks and forest clearings of the Yucatan Peninsula, Guatemala, Belize, and parts of Mexico, Honduras, and El Salvador. The air was thick with humidity and alive with the calls of howler monkeys, the rustle of cecropia leaves, and the distant splash of river water over smooth stones. These early Maya were farmers, drawn to the rich black soil that nourished their sacred corn, their beans, and their squash. They lived in simple thatched roof houses raised on low platforms, their days measured by the sun's arc across the canopy and the changing songs of tropical birds. Yet even in these humble beginnings, something extraordinary was stirring, a deep connection to the rhythms of earth and sky that would one day flower into one of the world's most sophisticated civilizations. Picture these ancient villages in the gentle light of evening fires. Women grinding corn on stone metates, the rhythmic sound echoing softly through the settlement. Children playing in the shadows of massive ceiba trees, their laughter mixing with the evening chorus of frogs and insects. Elders sharing stories beneath star-scattered skies, their voices weaving together the threads of memory and myth that would eventually become the rich tapestry of Maya culture. The Maya possessed an almost mystical understanding of their environment. They saw the forest not as wilderness to be conquered, but as a living temple filled with spirits and sacred places. Every tree, every cave, every cenote, those crystal-clear pools that pierce the limestone bedrock, held meaning in their expanding world-view. The jaguar prowling through midnight shadows was more than a predator. It was a divine messenger, moving between the worlds of the living and the dead. As centuries passed like slow-moving clouds across the jungle canopy, these scattered communities began to grow and connect. Trade routes emerged along ancient paths, carrying obsidian from volcanic highlands, jade from distant mountains, and cacao beans that were precious as gold. With trade came the exchange of ideas, of techniques for crafting pottery with intricate designs, of knowledge about the movements of celestial bodies, and of shared stories about the gods who danced in the spaces between earth and heaven. Around 1000 BCE, the first stirrings of what we recognize as distinctly Maya culture began to emerge. Villages grew into towns, and towns began to compete and cooperate in the endless dance of human society. Leaders arose, men and women who could interpret the will of the gods, organize community projects, and guide their people through the complex negotiations of trade and territory. The Maya developed their own unique way of understanding time itself. Unlike our linear progression from past to future, they saw time as cyclical, like the endless turning of seasons or the patient revolution of planets around the sun. This cosmic perspective would eventually lead them to create calendars of breathtaking precision. But even in these early centuries, their ceremonies and festivals followed rhythms that honored both earthly seasons and celestial events. Religious beliefs took shape like morning mist rising from the forest floor. The Maya cosmos had 3 levels: the watery underworld of Xibalba, ruled by death gods and ancient spirits; the middle world where humans lived among animals and plants; and the heavenly realm where the sun, moon, and stars pursued their eternal journeys. Great trees connected these worlds, their roots reaching deep into Earth's mysteries, while their crowns touched the dwelling places of the gods. Art began to flourish in these growing communities. Potters crafted vessels decorated with geometric patterns and the first tentative representations of gods and mythical creatures. Stone carvers created monuments that would endure long after their creators had returned to dust. The earliest forms of Maya writing appeared, not yet the sophisticated hieroglyphic script that would later record their kings and conquests, but simple symbols that captured essential ideas about ownership, identity, and sacred power. Agriculture became increasingly sophisticated as the Maya learned to work with their challenging environment. They developed raised fields in swampy areas, terraced hillsides to prevent erosion, and complex systems of canals to manage water during both the rainy season's abundance and the dry season's scarcity. The milpa system, the ancient practice of rotating crops and allowing forest to regenerate, showed their deep understanding of ecological balance, a wisdom that sustained them for thousands of years. By the beginning of the Common Era, the foundations of Maya civilization were solidly established. Towns were growing into true cities, with impressive stone architecture beginning to rise above the forest canopy. Ball courts appeared, sacred spaces where ritual games connected human activity to cosmic forces. The first royal dynasties were taking shape, their power legitimized by claims of divine ancestry and their ability to communicate with the gods. As this foundational chapter of Maya history draws to a close, we can almost hear the whispered conversations of ancestors around ancient fires, feel the humid night air stirring the leaves of trees that had already stood for centuries, and sense the anticipation of a people on the verge of greatness. The stage was set for the magnificent flowering that would follow, the rise of great cities, the perfection of arts and sciences, and the creation of a civilization that would leave an indelible mark on the human story. In the deepening twilight of our imaginations, let us rest with these early Maya communities, secure in their forest homes, dreaming dreams that would one day become reality in the form of towering pyramids, intricate sculptures, and books written in glyphs that captured both the mundane details of daily life and the most profound mysteries of existence. As dawn breaks through the rainforest canopy, shafts of golden light illuminate a transformed world. The scattered villages of our ancestors have given birth to magnificent cities that rise like ancient dreams made manifest in stone and mortar. This is the classical period of Maya civilization, when human creativity and divine inspiration combined to create some of the most beautiful cities ever built. Imagine walking through the morning mist toward Tikal, greatest of the early Maya metropolises. Before you see the city itself, you hear it. The deep, resonant calls of howler monkeys greeting the dawn, the flutter of thousands of wings as parrots and toucans take flight, and beneath it all, the gentle murmur of human voices beginning another day in paradise. Then the forest opens, and you gasp in wonder. Rising impossibly high above the emerald sea of treetops, the great pyramids of Tikal reach toward heaven like fingers of worked stone. Temple Eye soars nearly 200 feet into the sky, its steep stairs disappearing into morning clouds. The Lost World complex spreads before you in mathematical perfection, its plazas and pyramids arranged according to astronomical alignments that capture the movements of sun, moon, and planets with stunning precision. The city awakens slowly, like a giant stirring from peaceful sleep. Smoke rises from cooking fires in the residential areas that spread outward from the ceremonial center. Children splash in the reservoirs that capture precious rainwater for the dry season. Merchants begin arranging their goods in the market plazas, jade jewelry that catches the light like captured starfire, pottery painted with scenes from mythology, textiles woven in patterns that tell stories of gods and heroes. Tikal was not alone in its grandeur. Across the Maya world, cities bloomed like flowers in the forest. Each had its own character, its own special relationship with the landscape, its own contribution to the growing tapestry of Maya civilization. In the north, the great city of Calakmul rose from dense jungle to challenge Tikal's supremacy. Here, architects perfected the art of building with the forest rather than against it. Sacred cecropia trees were incorporated into plazas, their silver-green leaves whispering ancient secrets to those who knew how to listen. The rulers of Calakmul, calling themselves the Snake Kings, built a dynasty that would span centuries, their power extending like invisible roots throughout the Maya world. To the south, nestled in a mountain valley where cool mists softened the tropical heat, the city of Copan emerged as the intellectual heart of Maya civilization. Here, scribes and astronomers gathered to perfect their understanding of time and space. The hieroglyphic stairway at Copan, with its 2,200 individual glyphs, represents the longest Maya text ever discovered. A stone library that preserves the voices of kings and queens who ruled 1,500 years ago. Far to the west, where the Usumacinta River curves through dense jungle, the city of Palenque nestled into forested hills like a jewel set in green velvet. The architects of Palenque possessed an almost supernatural understanding of light and shadow. The palace, with its unique tower and maze of courtyards, captured and channeled sunlight so that the carved reliefs seemed to come alive at different hours of the day. The Temple of Inscriptions, burial place of the great ruler Pakal, descended deep into the earth, connecting the world of the living with the mysterious realm of the ancestors. These cities were more than collections of buildings. They were living expressions of Maya cosmology. Every plaza, every pyramid, every carved monument was positioned according to sacred principles that reflected the structure of the universe itself. The Maya saw their cities as earthly mirrors of the cosmic order, places where humans could commune with gods and where divine power could flow into the world of ordinary experience. The people who lived in these urban paradises developed skills and knowledge that seem almost magical even today. Maya astronomers, working without telescopes or mechanical clocks, calculated the length of the year to within minutes of modern measurements. They predicted eclipses, tracked the movements of Venus and Mars, and created calendars that could accurately date events millions of years in the past or future. Maya mathematicians independently invented the concept of zero, a profound intellectual achievement that occurred only a few times in human history. Their numerical system, based on units of 20 rather than 10, allowed them to work with numbers of enormous size and to express complex relationships between time, space, and divine power. The hieroglyphic writing system reached new heights of sophistication during this period. Maya scribes could record not only names, dates, and historical events, but also abstract concepts, emotional states, and the subtle theological arguments that shaped their understanding of divine will. Each glyph was a small work of art, carefully carved or painted to please both the eye and the mind. Architecture evolved into forms of unprecedented beauty and engineering skill. Maya builders learned to create the corbelled arch, which allowed them to span large spaces without the structural support columns that limited other ancient builders. They decorated their buildings with intricate stucco reliefs that seemed to flow like frozen music across facades and interiored walls. The ball game, played in courts found at every major Maya city, embodied the civilization's understanding of cosmic conflict and renewal. Players, representing the forces of life and death, light and darkness, competed in matches that were simultaneously sporting events, religious ceremonies, and symbolic reenactments of mythological battles. The rubber ball itself represented the sun in its daily journey through the underworld, and the game's outcome could influence everything from agricultural success to military victory. Trade networks expanded like spiderwebs across Mesoamerica, connecting Maya cities to distant peoples and exotic goods. Merchants traveled well-established routes through jungle and over mountain passes, carrying not only material goods, but also ideas, techniques, and cultural innovations that enriched Maya civilization and spread its influence far beyond the borders of the Maya world. Royal courts became centers of artistic patronage and intellectual achievement. Kings and queens surrounded themselves with the finest craftsmen, the most learned scribes, and the most skilled astronomers. These rulers were not merely political leaders, but also spiritual intermediaries who maintained the delicate balance between human society and divine will through elaborate ceremonies, bloodletting rituals, and architectural projects that honored the gods. Daily life in these classical Maya cities followed rhythms that balanced practical necessity with spiritual observance. Farmers tended their milpas in the forest, following agricultural cycles that had been refined over generations. Craftsmen worked in specialized workshops, creating pottery, textiles, jewelry, and tools that combined functional excellence with artistic beauty. Merchants planned trading expeditions that might take them hundreds of miles from home. Priests and scribes studied astronomical tables and conducted ceremonies that ensured the continued favor of the gods. As we draw this chapter to a close, picture yourself standing on the summit of one of Tikal's great pyramids at sunset. The forest stretches endlessly in all directions, painted in shades of green that have no names in any modern language. Other pyramid tops pierce the canopy like islands in a verdant sea. The air is filled with the calls of thousands of birds returning to their roosts, while the first bats of evening begin their hunt for insects. Below you, the city settles into peaceful twilight. Cooking fires begin to twinkle in the growing darkness. The sound of drums and flutes drifts up from plaza ceremonies. Somewhere in the palace complex, scribes work by torchlight to record the day's events in glyphs that will outlive their creators by more than a millennium. This was Maya civilization at its zenith, a perfect balance of human achievement and natural harmony, of earthly power and cosmic understanding, of practical skill and transcendent beauty. In the gentle embrace of tropical night, let us rest with the knowledge that such magnificence was once possible, that human beings could create cities worthy of the gods while living in harmony with the forest that gave them life. In the deep silence before dawn, when the last night birds have returned to their roosts and the morning chorus has not yet begun, we enter the most profound achievement of Maya civilization. Their remarkable understanding of the cosmos and their ability to capture that understanding in stone and script. Picture a Maya astronomer priest standing atop a pyramid at Chichen Itza, his eyes trained on the eastern horizon, where Venus, the morning star, prepares to herald the approaching sun. This is not merely scientific observation, but sacred communion. For the Maya, astronomy was theology, mathematics was mysticism, and writing was a form of prayer that could preserve divine wisdom for future generations. The Maya developed the most sophisticated astronomical knowledge of any ancient American civilization. Without telescopes, mechanical clocks, or metal tools, they achieved computational accuracy that rivals modern measurements. Their fascination with celestial cycles stemmed from a fundamental belief that earthly events mirrored heavenly patterns, that by understanding the movements of sun, moon, and planets, they could glimpse the very thoughts of the gods. Venus held special significance in Maya cosmology. They tracked its 584-day cycle with obsessive precision, recording its appearances as both morning and evening star in tables that could predict its behavior centuries into the future. Venus was associated with warfare and rulership. Maya kings timed their battles and coronations to coincide with significant moments in the planet's cycle, believing that celestial favor would ensure earthly success. The Maya calculated the length of the solar year as 365.2420 days, accurate to within minutes of our modern measurement of 365.2422 days. They achieved this precision through centuries of patient observation, generation after generation of sky watchers, adding their carefully recorded observations to an ever-growing database of celestial knowledge. Their lunar calculations were equally impressive. Maya astronomers could predict eclipses with remarkable accuracy, understanding that these dramatic events followed mathematical patterns rather than representing the arbitrary anger of the gods. Eclipse prediction became a source of tremendous prestige for Maya rulers who could demonstrate their divine connections by accurately forecasting these awe-inspiring celestial spectacles. The Maya understanding of time itself was revolutionary. Rather than thinking of time as a river flowing from past to future, they conceived it as a vast, interconnected web of cycles within cycles. Their long count calendar could date events over 5,000 years in the past or future with day-by-day precision. The sacred round of 260 days meshed with the solar year of 365 days to create a calendar round that repeated every 52 years, while larger cycles measured the vast movements of cosmic time. This sophisticated chronology was recorded in the most advanced writing system ever developed in the Americas. Maya hieroglyphic script combined logographic symbols representing whole words or concepts with phonetic signs representing individual sounds. A single Maya text could operate on multiple levels simultaneously, phonetic, logographic, and symbolic, creating layers of meaning that reward careful study even today. Maya scribes were among the most highly educated individuals in their society. Training began in childhood and continued for years, as students mastered not only the mechanics of reading and writing, but also the astronomical knowledge, mythological traditions, and ritual requirements that gave meaning to their texts. These scholar priests were simultaneously scientists, historians, theologians, and artists. The books they created, painted on bark paper made from the inner bark of fig trees, were marvels of both content and craftsmanship. Though the Spanish conquistadors and missionaries destroyed most of these precious codices, the few that survive reveal the extraordinary sophistication of Maya intellectual achievement. The Dresden Codex contains astronomical tables of stunning accuracy. The Madrid Codex preserves detailed information about Maya religious ceremonies and mythological beliefs. The Paris Codex records historical information about Maya rulers and their deeds. But Maya writing was not confined to books. They carved texts on stone monuments throughout their cities, creating a vast library written in granite and limestone that has survived the centuries. These inscriptions record the births, marriages, conquests, and deaths of Maya rulers with the precision of court historians. They also preserve speeches, prayers, and philosophical reflections that provide intimate glimpses into the Maya world view. The mathematical knowledge underlying these achievements was equally sophisticated. The Maya independently invented the concept of zero, a profound intellectual breakthrough that occurred only a few times in human history. Their vigesimal, base 20 number system allowed them to work with enormous quantities and to express the vast cycles of cosmic time with elegant precision. Maya mathematics was fundamentally different from our own. While we tend to separate practical calculation from spiritual significance, the Maya saw numbers as living entities with their own personalities and divine associations. The number 13 was sacred, associated with the levels of heaven. The number 9 represented the levels of the underworld. The number 20 reflected the totality of human fingers and toes, making it a natural base for their mathematical system. Architecture served as a three-dimensional expression of Maya astronomical and mathematical knowledge. Buildings were oriented to mark significant celestial events, the rising of Venus, the extreme positions of the sun during solstices, the path of the moon through its monthly cycle. The caracol at Chichen Itza, with its spiral staircase and carefully positioned windows, functioned as a sophisticated astronomical observatory that could track the movements of multiple celestial bodies simultaneously. The Great Ball Court at Chichen Itza demonstrates the Maya ability to combine mathematical precision with symbolic meaning. Its dimensions and proportions reflect astronomical constants, while its acoustic properties create echoes that mimic the calls of sacred birds. When a ball strikes the walls, the sound resonates through the court like the voice of the gods themselves. Maya medical knowledge, preserved in some of their codices, shows the same systematic approach that characterized their astronomy and mathematics. They understood the circulation of blood, performed successful dental work, and developed treatments for a wide range of diseases and injuries. Their pharmacological knowledge was extensive, based on detailed understanding of the medicinal properties of rainforest plants. The production of Maya books was itself a sacred art. Scribes prepared paper by boiling strips of fig bark until they could be beaten into smooth sheets. These sheets were coated with a thin layer of lime plaster that provided an ideal surface for painting. Pigments were prepared from minerals and organic materials, red from hematite, blue from indigo mixed with a special clay, black from carbon. Maya artists developed sophisticated techniques for representing three-dimensional space on flat surfaces. Their paintings and relief carvings show complex scenes with multiple figures interacting in realistic environments. They understood perspective, foreshortening, and the use of overlapping forms to create depth and movement. The calendar systems that emerged from Maya astronomical knowledge became the foundation for religious and social organization throughout their civilization. Every important activity, from planting crops to conducting warfare, was timed according to calendar calculations that ensured harmony between human actions and cosmic rhythms. Divination, based on calendar calculations and astronomical observations, played a crucial role in Maya decision-making. Daykeepers, priest astronomers who specialized in interpreting the complex interactions of various calendar cycles, advised rulers on the most auspicious times for important undertakings. Their calculations could determine whether a particular day was favorable for marriage, warfare, trade, or religious ceremonies. As we reflect on these remarkable achievements, imagine sitting in a Maya library 1,500 years ago. Flickering torchlight illuminates walls lined with hundreds of bark paper books. Scribes work quietly at low tables, their brushes dancing across lime-white pages as they record astronomical observations, copy mythological texts, or compose historical chronicles. The air is fragrant with copal incense, and the distant sound of drums marks the hours of the night. In this sanctuary of knowledge, the Maya preserved their understanding of the universe, an understanding that saw mathematics and astronomy not as abstract sciences, but as pathways to divine truth. Their achievements in these fields were not mere intellectual exercises, but spiritual quests to comprehend the mind of creation itself. As dawn approaches and Venus begins to fade in the brightening sky, We can almost hear the whispered prayers of Maya astronomer priests, their voices joining with the awakening forest in a cosmic symphony that celebrates the eternal dance of earth and heaven, time and eternity. Human wisdom and divine mystery. In the hushed moments between sleep and waking, when dreams still cling to consciousness like morning mist, we enter the sacred heart of Maya civilization, a world where gods walked among mortals, where every tree held spirits, and where the boundary between the physical and spiritual realms was as permeable as smoke rising from copal incense. The Maya cosmos was a living entity, pulsing with divine energy and populated by a pantheon of gods whose personalities were as complex and contradictory as those of humans. Unlike the distant deities of some religions, Maya gods were intimately involved in daily life, influencing everything from the success of crops to the outcome of battles, from the health of children to the wisdom of rulers. Picture the creation story as the Maya understood it, painted in brilliant colors on the walls of temple chambers and recorded in the sacred pages of the Popol Vuh. In the beginning, there was only water and sky, an infinite expanse of darkness punctuated by the patient breathing of the gods. Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, moved like wind across the primordial waters, while other creator deities, Heart of Sky, Newborn Thunderbolt, Hurricane, prepared to speak the world into existence. Earth, they said, and mountains rose from the waters. Trees, they commanded, and forests spread across the newly formed land. Animals filled the wilderness. But when the gods asked these creatures to praise their creators, they could only grunt, roar, and chatter meaninglessly. Disappointed, the gods decided to create beings capable of worship and gratitude. Their first attempt produced people of mud who dissolved in the rain. Their second effort created people of wood who were destroyed by a great flood for their failure to honor their makers. Finally, the gods formed humans from corn dough mixed with sacred water. And these people, the ancestors of the Maya, possessed the consciousness necessary to recognize divine power and offer appropriate praise. This creation story reveals fundamental Maya beliefs about the relationship between humans and the divine. People were not created as masters of nature, but as stewards and worshippers, responsible for maintaining cosmic balance through ritual, prayer, and proper behavior. The Maya understood themselves as partners with the gods in an ongoing act of creation that required constant attention and devotion. The Maya cosmos had 3 levels, each with its own characteristics and inhabitants. The celestial realm, ruled by Itzamna, the supreme creator god, was home to the sun, moon, and stars in their eternal journeys across the sky. This heavenly world was visualized as a great house with 13 levels, each occupied by different deities and celestial phenomena. The middle world, our Earth, was conceived as the back of a giant turtle floating in the primordial sea. At its center grew the world tree, a massive cecropia whose roots reached deep into the underworld while its crown touched the heavens. This cosmic tree served as an axis connecting all levels of existence, allowing spirits, gods, and human souls to travel between worlds. The underworld, called Xibalba, or place of fear, was neither heaven nor hell, but a complex realm where the dead continued their existence in forms appropriate to their earthly lives. Ruled by death, gods with names like One Death and Seven Death, Xibalba was a place of testing and transformation where souls might eventually earn rebirth or transcendence to higher states of being. Maya religious practice centered on maintaining harmony between these cosmic levels through elaborate ceremonies that combined drama, music, dance, and sacrifice. The most important rituals were timed according to astronomical observations and calendar calculations, ensuring that human activities remained synchronized with divine will. Bloodletting ceremonies held special significance in Maya religion. Rulers and nobles pierced their tongues, earlobes, and genitals with obsidian blades or stingray spines, offering their blood to nourish the gods and maintain cosmic balance. These rituals were not acts of self-punishment, but sacred communications, ways of opening doorways between the human and divine realms. The vision serpent that appeared during bloodletting ceremonies was understood as a direct manifestation of divine presence. As nobles entered trance states induced by blood loss and ritualistic pain, they saw serpentine forms emerging from bowls of burning blood-soaked paper. These serpents might carry messages from deceased ancestors or reveal glimpses of future events that would guide important decisions. Human sacrifice, while perhaps the most dramatic aspect of Maya religion, represented only one form of offering among many. The Maya also sacrificed animals, precious goods, and agricultural products. They threw jade, gold, and copal incense into sacred cenotes, believing these underwater caves to be entrances to Xibalba, where their offerings would reach the death gods directly. The famous ball game, played throughout the Maya world, was itself a religious ceremony rather than mere entertainment. Players representing opposing cosmic forces, light and dark, life and death, order and chaos, competed in matches that symbolically reenacted the mythological conflicts that maintained universal balance. The rubber ball represented the sun in its daily journey through the underworld, while the game's outcome could influence everything from seasonal rains to military success. Maya shamans, known as daykeepers or calendar priests, served as intermediaries between human communities and the spirit world. These religious specialists underwent years of training to master the complex calendar systems, astronomical knowledge, and mythological traditions necessary for their calling. They conducted divination ceremonies, performed healing rituals, and guided communities through the intricate web of religious obligations that governed Maya life. Caves held particular spiritual significance for the Maya, who viewed these underground chambers as sacred portals to Xibalba. Cave ceremonies involved offerings of pottery, textiles, and food to ancestral spirits and underworld deities. Some caves contained elaborate shrines decorated with stalactite formations, believed to be petrified gods or mythological beings. The Maya pantheon included hundreds of deities, each with specific responsibilities and characteristics. Chak, the rain god, appeared in 4 aspects corresponding to the cardinal directions, each associated with a different color: red for east, white for north, black for west, yellow for south. Ixchel, the moon goddess, ruled over childbirth, weaving, and medicine, often depicted as an elderly woman with serpents in her hair. Kukulkan, the feathered serpent known to the Aztecs as Quetzalcoatl, embodied the union of earth and sky, matter and spirit. This deity was associated with wind, rain, and the planet Venus, and was often invoked in ceremonies related to rulership and divine authority. The maize god, representing the crop that formed the basis of Maya civilization, died and was reborn in an endless cycle that mirrored the agricultural seasons. Maya art frequently depicts this youthful deity emerging from the earth or from the shell of a turtle, symbolizing the renewal of life that comes with each planting season. Ancestor veneration played a crucial role in Maya spirituality. The dead were not gone, but remained active members of their communities, capable of influencing events in the world of the living. Elaborate burial practices ensured that ancestors would have the tools and offerings necessary for their continued existence in Xibalba, while regular ceremonies maintained communication between generations. Maya art served as a visual theology, with every sculpture, painting, and architectural detail carrying layers of religious meaning. The facades of temples were covered with masks representing various deities, while interior murals depicted mythological scenes and historical events, understood as manifestations of divine will. The sacred calendar of 260 days, formed by the interaction of 13 numbers with 20-day names, governed the timing of religious ceremonies and personal spiritual practices. Each day had its own spiritual character, influenced by the deities and forces associated with its particular combination of number and name sign. Pilgrimage sites throughout the Maya world attracted devotees from hundreds of miles away. Chichen Itza's sacred cenote became a place of regional pilgrimage where people from diverse Maya communities came to make offerings and seek divine favor. The island of Cozumel, sacred to Ixchel, drew women seeking assistance with childbirth and fertility. As we contemplate this rich spiritual landscape, imagine yourself participating in a Maya ceremony 1,500 years ago. The air is thick with copal smoke and the sound of conch shell trumpets. Dancers wearing elaborate costumes and masks represent gods and mythological beings, their movements telling stories of creation, death, and renewal. The ceremony continues through the night, connecting the community to cosmic rhythms that have governed Maya life for generations beyond memory. In the growing light of dawn, as the ceremony reaches its climax and the vision serpent appears in the rising smoke, we glimpse the profound spiritual wisdom that sustained Maya civilization for over 2 millennia. Their religion was not an escape from the natural world, but a deep engagement with it, a recognition that human life finds its deepest meaning in relationship with the divine forces that animate all existence. As the sacred smoke disperses and the dancers return to their everyday lives, the gods retreat to their celestial homes, and the great world tree continues its patient connection of earth and heaven. We carry with us the Maya understanding that every moment is sacred, every place is holy, and every human action has cosmic significance. As the first light of dawn filters through the forest canopy, illuminating drops of dew on broad cecropia leaves and awakening the symphony of tropical birds, we enter the daily rhythm of Maya life, a world where the sacred and mundane intertwined as naturally as vines embracing ancient trees. Picture a Maya family awakening in their home on the outskirts of Copan as morning mist rises from the river valley. The house, built of stone and mortar, with a thatched roof that has weathered countless rainy seasons, sits on a low platform that lifts it above the seasonal floods. Smoke curls from the cooking fire that never quite dies, tended by generations of women who have passed down the sacred knowledge of nourishing their families. The mother of the household, her huipil dress woven with patterns that tell stories of gods and ancestors, kneels beside her metate, a volcanic stone grinding platform that has been in her family for decades. The rhythmic sound of corn kernels being ground into masa fills the morning air, a percussion that harmonizes with the awakening forest. This daily transformation of dried corn into dough is not merely food preparation, but a sacred act that recreates the original formation of humanity from maize. Her daughters, ranging from toddlers to young women approaching marriage age, gather around to learn the intricate skills that define Maya womanhood. The youngest watches with large eyes as her mother's practiced hands shape tortillas with perfect roundness. The older girls have already mastered this basic technique and are learning the more complex arts of weaving, pottery, and the identification of medicinal plants that grow wild in the forest. Meanwhile, the father and his sons prepare for their day in the milpa, the family cornfield that lies hidden in a forest clearing several miles from the house. Maya agriculture was a delicate dance with nature that required intimate knowledge of soil conditions, weather patterns, and the complex relationships between different crops. The milpa system, still practiced by Maya farmers today, rotated corn, beans, and squash in a symbiotic arrangement that enriched the soil while providing complete nutrition. Before leaving for the fields, the family gathers for morning prayers. The father burns copal incense and speaks quietly to the gods of agriculture, asking for their blessing on the day's work. The children learn from watching their parents that every activity, no matter how mundane, has spiritual dimensions that must be acknowledged and honored. The journey to the milpa is itself a lesson in Maya knowledge of the natural world. The father points out medicinal plants along the trail. This leaf for headaches, that bark for stomach troubles, these roots for treating wounds. He shows his sons how to read the forest signs that predict weather changes, how to identify the tracks of different animals, and how to move quietly through the jungle without disturbing its spiritual inhabitants. In the milpa, the work begins before the heat of the day becomes unbearable. Maya farmers used fire-hardened wooden digging sticks to plant their crops, working in harmony with natural cycles rather than attempting to dominate them. They understood that the forest was not an enemy to be conquered, but a partner in the ongoing act of creation. The three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, were planted together using techniques refined over thousands of years. Corn stalks provided natural poles for beans to climb, while bean roots added nitrogen to the soil that nourished all three crops. Squash vines spread across the ground. their broad leaves providing shade that conserved moisture and suppressed weeds. Between the rows of crops, Maya farmers encouraged the growth of useful wild plants. Chili peppers added spice to meals while deterring harmful insects. Amaranth provided nutritious seeds and leaves. Various trees were left standing to provide shade, fruit, medicinal bark, and homes for birds whose songs made the work more pleasant. Back in the residential areas of Maya cities, other families pursued different occupations that contributed to the complex urban economy. In workshops scattered throughout neighborhoods, craftsmen practiced skills that had been perfected over generations. Pottery-making families worked with local clays to create everything from simple cooking vessels to elaborate ceremonial urns decorated with scenes from mythology. Watch a Maya potter at work, her hands moving with practiced grace as she shapes wet clay on a slowly rotating disc. She adds temper made from ground limestone to prevent cracking, then smooths the surface with a river pebble, worn smooth by countless hours of use. Once the pot has dried to leather hardness, she will paint it with mineral pigments mixed with plant-based binders, creating designs that are simultaneously functional and beautiful. Textile production represented one of the highest achievements of Maya craftsmanship. Women spent years learning to spin cotton and agave fiber into thread, then to weave that thread into cloth using backstrap looms that allowed for incredibly complex patterns. Maya textiles served as more than clothing. They were historical documents that recorded family genealogies, religious beliefs, and social status through their colors, patterns, and weaving techniques. The process of creating a ceremonial huipil might take months of careful work. First, the cotton had to be cleaned and spun into thread of consistent thickness. Then the thread was dyed using pigments extracted from insects, shells, and plants, the brilliant red from cochineal beetles, deep purple from murex shells, vibrant yellow from tree bark. Finally, the weaving began, with patterns that might incorporate hundreds of different colored threads in designs of breathtaking complexity. Maya merchants formed another crucial element of daily life, their trading expeditions connecting distant communities and spreading both goods and ideas across Mesoamerica. These brave individuals undertook journeys of hundreds of miles through dangerous territory, carrying precious cargo in large woven baskets supported by tumplines across their foreheads. Salt from coastal lagoons, obsidian from volcanic highlands, jade from mountain rivers, cacao from tropical forests, all moved along trade routes that had been established for centuries. The merchant's life was one of calculated risk and careful planning. Before departing on a trading expedition, merchants consulted with day keepers to determine the most auspicious dates for travel. They carried not only trade goods, but also weapons for protection, offerings for the gods of dangerous places, and detailed knowledge of customs and languages they would encounter in foreign lands. Market days transformed Maya cities into festivals of commerce and social interaction. In the great plazas that served as commercial centers, vendors arranged their goods on woven mats, while buyers moved slowly through the displays, examining pottery, textiles, jewelry, tools, and foods from across the Maya world. The air filled with the sounds of bargaining, laughter, and the calls of vendors advertising their wares. Children learned the fundamentals of mathematics and economics by watching these market interactions. Maya merchants used cacao beans as currency, with standardized values that allowed for complex transactions. A turkey might cost 100 cacao beans, while a ripe tomato was worth just 1 bean. This system required mental arithmetic skills that Maya children developed from an early age. Education in Maya society was primarily a family responsibility, with children learning through observation and participation rather than formal instruction. Boys accompanied their fathers to fields, workshops, or trading expeditions, gradually acquiring the skills they would need as adults. Girls learned from their mothers and female relatives the intricate knowledge required to manage Maya households, not only cooking and weaving, but also herbal medicine, child care, and the complex religious observances that governed family life. For the children of noble families, education might include formal instruction in reading and writing. These privileged young people learned the hieroglyphic script that recorded Maya history and literature, the astronomical knowledge that governed religious ceremonies, and the diplomatic skills necessary for managing relationships between different Maya cities. Maya medicine combined practical knowledge of human anatomy and plant chemistry with spiritual understanding of disease as disruption of cosmic harmony. Healers underwent years of training to master both the physical and metaphysical aspects of their calling. They learned to identify and prepare hundreds of medicinal plants, to perform surgical procedures, and to conduct the religious ceremonies that addressed the spiritual causes of illness. Picture a Maya healer at work, her fingers gently probing a patient's body to identify areas of pain or swelling, while her mind calculates the astrological influences that might be affecting the person's health. She prepares medicines from carefully selected plants, combining them according to recipes that have been tested over generations. But she also burns copal incense and recites prayers, understanding that true healing requires attention to both body and spirit. Food preparation in Maya households was itself a form of art that reflected deep understanding of nutrition, flavor, and spiritual significance. Maya cooks knew dozens of ways to prepare corn as tortillas, tamales, gruels, and beverages. They combined corn with beans to create complete proteins, added chili peppers and tomatoes for flavor and vitamins, and used chocolate in beverages reserved for special occasions. The evening meal brought Maya families together to share not only food, but also stories, plans, and the accumulated wisdom of generations. Children listened as adults discussed the day's events, planned for tomorrow's work, and shared tales of gods and heroes that reinforced cultural values and family identity. As darkness settled over Maya communities, the rhythm of daily life shifted to evening activities. Women continued weaving by firelight, their fingers working patterns they knew by touch. Men carved wood or knapped obsidian tools while discussing community affairs. Children played games that taught them skills they would need as adults, strategy games that developed tactical thinking, physical games that built strength and coordination. The Maya day ended as it began, with recognition of spiritual dimensions that permeated ordinary existence. Families offered prayers of gratitude for the day's blessings and asked for protection during the vulnerable hours of sleep. They banked their cooking fires carefully, ensuring that the sacred flame would survive until morning to begin another cycle of daily life. Religious observances punctuated Maya daily routine with festivals and ceremonies that connected communities to cosmic rhythms. Market days often coincided with religious celebrations when the serious business of trade was interrupted by processions, dances, and offerings to gods who protected merchants and ensured fair dealing. The Maya calendar governed not only major religious festivals, but also the timing of ordinary activities. Certain days were favorable for planting, others for harvesting. Some days were appropriate for beginning new ventures, while others called for rest and reflection. This integration of sacred time with practical activity gave Maya life a sense of meaning and purpose that extended beyond mere survival. As we observe this rich tapestry of daily life, we see that Maya civilization achieved something remarkable, a way of living that balanced individual needs with community responsibilities, practical skills with spiritual wisdom, human ambition with natural harmony. Their daily routines were simultaneously mundane and sacred, ordinary and extraordinary. In the gentle darkness of a Maya night, as cooking fires dim to glowing coals and families settle into sleep, protected by prayers and ancestral blessings, we glimpse a civilization that understood the profound truth that how we live each day shapes not only our own destiny, but the fate of the cosmos itself. The Maya discovered that the sacred is not separate from daily life, but woven into its very fabric, making every meal a communion, every craft a prayer, and every day a gift from the gods. As the golden age of Maya civilization reached its zenith, shadows began to gather on the horizon, like storm clouds building over the rainforest canopy. The same creative energies that had built magnificent cities and achieved unprecedented intellectual heights now turned toward darker purposes, as competition for resources and prestige led to increasingly destructive conflicts that would ultimately contribute to the collapse of the southern Maya lowlands. Picture the Great Plaza at Tikal on a morning in the late 8th century. The city has grown beyond the wildest dreams of its founders, with a population approaching 100,000 souls. The magnificent pyramids still rise majestically above the forest canopy. But if you look closely, you can see signs of strain in this urban paradise. The reservoirs that collect precious rainwater during the dry season are showing stress from overuse. Farmland that once lay fallow between plantings now shows signs of continuous cultivation. The forest itself has retreated farther from the city centre as the demand for construction materials and agricultural land has grown. The Maya had always known warfare, but during the classical period, conflicts intensified in both frequency and brutality. What had once been ritualized combats between small groups of warriors evolved into large-scale military campaigns designed to capture territory, control trade routes, and demonstrate divine favor through conquest of enemies. The rivalry between Tikal and Calakmul exemplifies this escalation. These two superpowers of the Maya world engaged in a centuries-long struggle that drew smaller cities into their conflict as either allies or victims. The warfare was not random violence, but highly organized campaigns, timed according to astronomical observations and conducted according to rules that reflected Maya understanding of cosmic order. Maya warriors were trained from childhood in the arts of combat. They learned to use obsidian-tipped spears that could penetrate the cotton armor worn by enemy fighters. They mastered the atlatl, a spear-throwing device that could propel projectiles with deadly accuracy across considerable distances. They practiced with clubs embedded with razor-sharp obsidian blades that could inflict terrible wounds, despite the protection offered by shields made of wood and leather. But Maya warfare was more than mere physical combat. It was spiritual struggle that required proper ritual preparation and divine authorization. Warriors underwent purification ceremonies before battle, painting their bodies with sacred designs and receiving blessings from priest warriors who served both military and religious functions. The timing of battles was determined by calendar calculations that identified days when cosmic forces favored military action. The capture of enemy nobles was considered more valuable than killing them outright. These prisoners would be brought back to the victor's city for elaborate public ceremonies that might last for days. The captives would be forced to participate in ball games where their defeat was predetermined, subjected to ritual humiliation, and eventually sacrificed in ceremonies designed to nourish the gods and demonstrate the superior spiritual power of their captors. Archaeological evidence reveals the increasing sophistication of Maya military technology and tactics during this period. Cities began building elaborate defensive walls and ditches, indicating that warfare was becoming more destructive and less ritualized. The beautiful art that decorated Maya temples and palaces increasingly depicted scenes of warfare, torture, and sacrifice, suggesting that military prowess was becoming a central element of royal ideology. The political landscape of the Maya world during the late classical period was extraordinarily complex. Dozens of independent city-states maintained their own royal dynasties, each claiming divine legitimacy and competing for prestige through military success, architectural projects, and demonstrations of supernatural power. These cities formed shifting alliances that could change from generation to generation as political circumstances evolved. Maya kings were not merely political leaders, but sacred intermediaries between human society and divine will. Their authority depended on their ability to demonstrate special relationships with the gods through successful warfare, accurate astronomical predictions, and the completion of impressive construction projects. A ruler who suffered military defeat or failed to bring rain during droughts might find his divine mandate questioned by both nobles and commoners. Royal succession could be a source of tremendous instability in Maya cities. While some kingdoms had established clear rules of inheritance, others experienced power struggles when rulers died without obvious heirs or when multiple claimants could make legitimate cases for succession. These internal conflicts often invited intervention by rival cities seeking to install puppet rulers or annex territory from weakened neighbors. The increasing frequency of warfare created economic strain on Maya cities that had previously devoted their energies to peaceful pursuits. Resources that might have been used for trade, construction, or agricultural improvement were diverted to military purposes. Young men who might have become farmers, craftsmen, or merchants instead spent their time training for combat or participating in military campaigns. Environmental challenges compounded the stresses created by political instability and military conflict. Population growth during the classical period had pushed Maya agriculture to its limits. The forest clearance necessary to create farmland for growing populations reduced the biodiversity that had previously provided insurance against crop failures. Erosion from deforested hillsides silted up the reservoirs that provided water during dry seasons. Climate records preserved in lake sediments and cave formations suggest that the Maya world experienced increasingly severe droughts during the 8th and 9th centuries. These dry periods, some lasting for decades, would have created tremendous stress for agricultural communities that depended on predictable rainfall for their survival. Competition for water resources may have contributed to the intensification of warfare during this period. The Maya response to these environmental challenges revealed both their ingenuity and the limitations of their technology. They developed increasingly sophisticated water management systems, building canals, reservoirs, and terraced fields that maximized agricultural productivity in the face of growing population pressure. But these solutions required enormous investments of labor and resources that further strained their economic systems. Archaeological evidence from sites like Karakol reveals the extraordinary lengths to which Maya cities went to support large populations in challenging environments. The city built an extensive network of terraced fields and water management systems that allowed it to sustain tens of thousands of inhabitants in what is now dense jungle. But the maintenance of these systems required constant attention and enormous amounts of human labor. The intensification of agriculture had long-term consequences that the Maya may not have fully understood. Continuous cultivation depleted soil nutrients that had accumulated over centuries of forest growth. The loss of forest cover reduced the natural recycling systems that had maintained soil fertility in undisturbed ecosystems. As agricultural productivity declined, Maya cities found themselves caught in a trap where they needed more farmland to feed their populations, but had less productive land available. Trade networks that had previously spread prosperity throughout the Maya world began to break down as warfare disrupted established routes and political instability made long-distance commerce increasingly dangerous. Merchants who had once traveled freely between cities now faced the risk of being captured and enslaved or killed by hostile forces. The goods that had enriched Maya civilization, jade from the mountains, obsidian from volcanic regions, salt from coastal areas, became more difficult and expensive to obtain. Social stratification increased during this period as warfare created new sources of wealth and status, while economic stress impoverished common people. Successful warriors could capture valuable prisoners and exotic goods, while farmers and craftsmen struggled with declining productivity and increasing demands for tribute to support military campaigns. The egalitarian aspects of early Maya society gave way to more rigid class distinctions that created additional sources of social tension. Religious beliefs began to emphasize militaristic themes as warfare became more central to Maya culture. Gods of war received increasing attention in ceremonies and artistic representations. The planet Venus, long associated with warfare, was tracked with obsessive precision to determine favorable times for military campaigns. Human sacrifice, always part of Maya religion, became more frequent and elaborate as rulers sought to demonstrate their piety and ensure divine favor in military ventures. Yet even as these shadows lengthened across Maya civilization, extraordinary achievements continued. Some of the most beautiful art and architecture ever created by Maya hands dates to this period of increasing instability. The late classical period saw the completion of magnificent projects like the Temple of Inscriptions at Palenque and the hieroglyphic stairway at Copan. Maya astronomers continued to refine their understanding of celestial cycles, while scribes produced literary works of enduring beauty and complexity. The contradiction between cultural achievement and social decay reveals something profound about Maya civilization during this critical period. The same competitive energies that drove cities to warfare also inspired them to create monuments and artworks of unprecedented sophistication. The stress of environmental and political challenges seemed to intensify rather than diminish Maya creativity, as if they were racing to preserve their greatest achievements before time ran out. As we reflect on this complex period in Maya history, imagine standing in the plaza at Copan during the reign of its last great king. The hieroglyphic stairway has just been completed, its 2,200 glyphs recording the glorious history of the royal dynasty. But signs of trouble are evident everywhere. The reservoir levels are low despite recent rains. The market has fewer traders than in previous years, and runners arrive daily carrying news of warfare in neighboring regions. The great ball court, where cosmic conflicts were symbolically resolved through ritual games, now hosts matches between captive warriors who fight for their lives before crowds that cheer for blood rather than cosmic balance. The ceremonies that once celebrated the harmony between human society and natural order increasingly focus on the need to nourish hungry gods with human sacrifice. As the sun sets through smoke from distant fires, whether from slash-and-burn agriculture or burning cities, it's impossible to tell. We sense that something precious is slipping away from Maya civilization. The balance between human ambition and natural limits that had sustained their culture for centuries was being pushed beyond its breaking point. Paradise was still visible in the magnificent cities and extraordinary achievements of Maya civilization. But shadows were growing longer with each passing day. In the gathering twilight of the classical period, as the sounds of war drums echo across valleys that had once known only the peaceful rhythm of daily life, we witness the tragic irony of a civilization that achieved its greatest heights just as it began its irreversible decline toward darkness. In the deep silence that precedes dawn, when the night sounds of the forest fade and morning has not yet begun, we enter the most haunting chapter of Maya civilization, the mysterious collapse that transformed bustling cities into jungle-covered ruins and scattered a sophisticated people across an uncertain landscape. Picture Tikal in the year 900 CE, its great pyramids still magnificent against the sky, but already showing signs of abandonment. Vines creep up the walls of palaces where kings once held court. The great plaza, which had witnessed 1,000 ceremonies, echoes now only with the calls of howler monkeys and the rustle of leaves in the wind. What had taken centuries to build was being reclaimed by the forest in decades. The collapse of classic Maya civilization in the southern lowlands remains one of archaeology's great mysteries. Cities that had flourished for centuries suddenly fell silent. Construction projects were abandoned, half-finished. The intricate hieroglyphic inscriptions that had recorded the deeds of kings simply stopped, as if the very ability to remember had been lost. By 900 CE, most of the great centers that had defined Maya civilization for 600 years were either completely abandoned or reduced to tiny remnants of their former glory. This was not a sudden catastrophe, but a gradual twilight that spread across the Maya world, like shadows lengthening at sunset. Archaeological evidence suggests that the collapse began in the periphery and worked inward, as smaller cities were abandoned first, followed eventually by the great centers that had seemed impregnable in their power and wealth. Climate data preserved in lake sediments and cave formations reveals that the Maya world experienced a series of devastating droughts during the 9th and 10th centuries. These dry periods were more severe and longer-lasting than anything Maya civilization had previously endured. Rivers that had flowed for millennia became seasonal trickles. Reservoirs that had sustained large populations for centuries ran dry. The sophisticated water management systems that had allowed Maya cities to flourish in challenging environments proved inadequate against the relentless advance of drought. But climate change alone cannot explain the complexity of Maya collapse. Environmental stress interacted with political instability, social inequality, and economic disruption to create a cascade of failures that overwhelmed the adaptive capacity that had previously allowed Maya civilization to survive periodic crises. Warfare intensified during the century before the collapse, as competing cities fought desperately for control of diminishing resources. Trade networks that had connected the Maya world for centuries broke down as political instability made long-distance commerce impossible. The social cooperation that had enabled Maya cities to undertake massive construction projects and support large populations dissolved into factional conflict and competition. Population pressure had pushed Maya agriculture beyond sustainable limits. Deforestation reduced the natural systems that had maintained soil fertility and regulated water cycles. Intensive cultivation depleted nutrients that had accumulated over millennia of forest growth. As agricultural productivity declined, Maya cities could no longer support the dense populations that had been their greatest achievement. The abandonment of cities followed predictable patterns that reveal something about how Maya society responded to increasing stress. Elite residential areas were abandoned first, suggesting that the ruling classes either fled to other regions or lost the resources necessary to maintain their luxurious lifestyles. Public ceremonies ceased, indicating the breakdown of the religious and political institutions that had held Maya communities together. Finally, even common residential areas were abandoned as people scattered to seek survival in smaller communities. Yet the collapse was not uniform across the Maya world. While the great cities of the southern lowlands fell into ruin, Maya civilization continued and even flourished in other regions. The northern Yucatan experienced a remarkable renaissance during the post-classic period, with cities like Chichen Itza and Mayapan achieving new heights of power and prosperity. Chichen Itza during the 10th and 11th centuries was one of the largest cities in the Americas, its influence extending across much of Mesoamerica. The city's architecture reflects both traditional Maya styles and influences from central Mexico, suggesting that the collapse of the southern lowlands created opportunities for cultural exchange and innovation in other regions. The famous pyramid known as El Castillo at Chichen Itza demonstrates the continued sophistication of Maya astronomical knowledge. Its 365 steps represent the days of the solar year, while its orientation creates shadow effects during equinoxes that make a serpent seem to slither down the pyramid's stairway. This architectural achievement required mathematical and astronomical knowledge equal to anything produced during the classical period. The sacred cenote at Chichen Itza became a pilgrimage site of hemispheric importance, drawing visitors from across Mesoamerica who came to make offerings to the rain god Chak. Thousands of precious objects have been recovered from its depths: gold discs, jade ornaments, copper bells, and human remains that testify to the site's religious significance during the post-classic period. In the highlands of Guatemala, Maya communities adapted to changing conditions by developing new forms of social organization. Cities like Iximche and Mixco Viejo were built on easily defended hilltops, reflecting the continued importance of warfare in Maya political life. These highland centers maintained many classical Maya traditions while developing innovative solutions to the challenges of their mountain environment. The Maya books that survive from the post-classic period reveal the continuation of sophisticated intellectual traditions despite the collapse of the great lowland cities. The Dresden Codex contains astronomical tables of extraordinary precision, while the Madrid Codex preserves detailed information about Maya religious ceremonies and agricultural practices. These books demonstrate that Maya learning survived the political collapse of the classical period. Trade networks were reconstituted during the post-classic period, though they followed different routes and connected different centers than during the classical era. Maya merchants developed extensive maritime trading networks that connected Yucatan with Central America and central Mexico. Canoes capable of carrying dozens of people and tons of cargo plied the coasts, carrying salt, honey, cotton textiles, and cacao to distant markets. The island of Cozumel became a major trading center and pilgrimage site during this period. Sacred to the goddess Ixchel, the island attracted Maya women from across Mesoamerica who came seeking assistance with childbirth and fertility. The combination of religious and commercial activities made Cozumel one of the wealthiest communities in the Maya world. Social organization evolved during the post-classic period in response to changing conditions. The divine kingship that had characterized classical Maya politics gave way to more collective forms of leadership. Councils of nobles shared power in many cities, while merchant families gained influence through their control of trade networks. Religious beliefs and practices showed both continuity and change during this period. Traditional Maya gods continued to receive worship, but new deities from central Mexico were incorporated into Maya pantheons. The feathered serpent god, known as Kukulkan, became increasingly important, reflecting cultural exchanges that had accompanied political and economic changes. Art and architecture from the post-classic period revealed the creativity that continued to characterize Maya civilization despite political upheaval. The murals at Santa Rita in Belize show sophisticated narrative scenes that combine traditional Maya themes with influences from other Mesoamerican cultures. The architecture of Mayapan demonstrates innovative solutions to the challenges of urban planning in the post-classic world. As centuries passed, Maya civilization adapted to conditions that were very different from those that had supported the classical period flowering. Communities became smaller and more dispersed, but they maintained cultural traditions that connected them to their glorious past. The calendar systems, astronomical knowledge, and religious practices that had defined Maya civilization continued to shape daily life in post-classic communities. The arrival of Europeans in the early 16th century found Maya civilization in a state of dynamic adaptation rather than terminal decline. Spanish accounts describe numerous Maya kingdoms in the Yucatan that were politically independent, economically prosperous, and culturally sophisticated. These communities had evolved from the collapse of classical civilization, but had not abandoned their Maya identity. The Spanish conquest of the Maya was a gradual process that took nearly 2 centuries to complete. Unlike the rapid conquest of the Aztec Empire, Maya resistance was sustained and effective, with some communities maintaining their independence well into the 17th century. The decentralized nature of post-classic Maya political organization, which made coordinated resistance difficult, also made complete conquest impossible. Maya books were systematically destroyed by Spanish missionaries who saw them as works of the devil, but oral traditions preserved much of Maya knowledge. The Popol Vuh, the great Maya creation epic, was written down in the colonial period by Maya scribes who adapted their traditional stories to the Latin alphabet. This work preserves creation myths, historical traditions, and philosophical insights that illuminate the Maya world view. As we contemplate this long twilight of Maya civilization, imagine walking through the ruins of a great city decades after its abandonment. Cecropia trees have taken root in plaza floors, their pale trunks rising between fallen stones. Howler monkeys have made their homes in the upper chambers of pyramids, where priests once observed the stars. The ball court, where cosmic conflicts were symbolically resolved, is now a pool of rainwater, where herons come to drink. Yet even in abandonment, these ruins speak of extraordinary human achievement. The precision of astronomical alignments remains perfect after centuries of neglect. The beauty of carved monuments still moves visitors to wonder and reverence. The engineering of water management systems continues to impress modern hydraulic engineers. The collapse of classic Maya civilization was not the end of Maya culture, but its transformation. Like a forest that regenerates after disturbance, Maya society found new forms of expression that allowed it to survive conquest, colonization, and centuries of oppression. The languages, traditions, and spiritual practices that sustained Maya communities through their greatest achievements also carried them through their darkest hours. In the gathering twilight of this chapter of Maya history, as we prepare to witness their encounter with European invaders, we carry with us the knowledge that cultural greatness cannot be measured only by the height of pyramids or the size of cities. The true measure of Maya civilization lies in its resilience, its adaptability, and its capacity to preserve essential truths through centuries of change and challenge. As night settles over the abandoned cities and living communities alike, we hear in the distance the sound of Maya voices raised in prayer and song, carrying forward traditions that connect them to ancestors who built wonders in stone, and to descendants who will preserve their heritage for generations yet to come. In the soft light of dawn breaking over the Caribbean, we witness one of history's most profound encounters as Spanish ships appear on the horizon of the Maya world, bringing with them forces that would forever alter the course of Mesoamerican civilization. Yet this final chapter of our journey is not one of ending, but of transformation, as the Maya people demonstrate a resilience that allows their culture to survive conquest, colonization, and centuries of oppression. Picture the coast of Yucatan in 1517 as Francisco Hernández de Córdoba's expedition makes landfall near what is now Cape Catoche. Maya scouts have been tracking the strange vessels for days, reporting to their lords about the bearded strangers with pale skin who command floating houses larger than any building in their cities. The Maya approach with curiosity rather than fear. They have dealt with foreign traders for centuries and have no reason to expect that these new arrivals represent anything more threatening than another opportunity for profitable exchange. The initial encounters between Maya and Spanish reveal the sophistication of Maya civilization on the eve of conquest. Spanish accounts describe well-organized cities, extensive trade networks, and complex political relationships between independent Maya kingdoms. The Maya they met were not primitive peoples overwhelmed by European technology, but sophisticated societies that had adapted classical traditions to post-classical realities. Maya maritime capabilities particularly impressed the Spanish explorers. Large dugout canoes capable of carrying 40 people and tons of cargo regularly plied the coasts, conducting trade between communities separated by hundreds of miles of open water. These vessels were navigated by Maya pilots who possessed detailed knowledge of currents, winds, and seasonal weather patterns accumulated over generations of seafaring experience. The Spanish found Maya cities that rivaled European settlements in size and organization. Tulum, perched dramatically on cliffs overlooking the Caribbean, served as both a trading center and a fortress protecting the eastern frontier of Maya territory. Its walls enclosed temples, palaces, and residential areas that housed thousands of inhabitants engaged in trade, fishing, and small-scale agriculture. But the Spanish also brought with them forces that Maya civilization, for all its achievements, was unprepared to resist. European diseases, smallpox, measles, typhus, spread through Maya communities with devastating effect. Populations that had no immunity to these old-world pathogens experienced mortality rates that sometimes exceeded 90%. Entire cities were depopulated, not by warfare, but by invisible enemies against which Maya medicine was powerless. The demographic catastrophe created by epidemic disease made Spanish conquest possible, but also shaped its character. Rather than confronting unified Maya resistance, Spanish conquistadors found themselves dealing with scattered survivors, struggling to maintain social organization in the face of overwhelming loss. The traditional structures that had governed Maya society for centuries crumbled under the weight of demographic collapse. Maya resistance to Spanish colonization was nonetheless sustained and effective in many regions. The independent Maya kingdom of Tayasal, located on an island in Lake Chichen Itza, maintained its independence until 1697, nearly 2 centuries after the Spanish conquest of central Mexico. This remote community preserved classical Maya traditions while adapting to colonial pressures, demonstrating the flexibility that had always characterized Maya culture. Spanish missionary efforts to convert the Maya to Christianity created one of the most tragic episodes in the history of the Americas. Diego de Landa, the Franciscan bishop who supervised the conversion of Yucatan, systematically destroyed Maya books, considering them works of the devil that prevented proper Christian instruction. In a single day at Mani in 1562, he burned thousands of codices, destroying a library of knowledge that had been accumulated over more than a millennium. Yet even as Spanish authorities destroyed the physical repositories of Maya learning, the knowledge itself survived in the memories and practices of Maya communities. Creation myths, astronomical observations, calendar calculations, and ritual procedures were preserved through oral tradition and secret practice. Maya scribes, trained in the colonial period to read and write Spanish, used their skills to record traditional stories in the Latin alphabet, creating works like the Popol Vuh that preserve ancient wisdom in new forms. The colonial period saw the emergence of syncretic religious practices that combined Maya and Christian elements in ways that allowed traditional beliefs to survive under the cover of Orthodox Christianity. Maya gods were identified with Christian saints, allowing their worship to continue in modified forms. Sacred places were incorporated into Christian pilgrimage routes, preserving their spiritual significance while adapting to new religious requirements. Maya communities developed strategies of accommodation and resistance that allowed them to preserve cultural autonomy while satisfying colonial demands for tribute and labor. They learned to navigate Spanish legal systems, using colonial courts to defend their land rights and community interests. They adopted European crops and livestock while maintaining traditional agricultural practices that had sustained them for millennia. The caste system imposed by Spanish colonial administration created new forms of social hierarchy, but Maya communities found ways to preserve traditional leadership structures within the constraints of colonial rule. Native nobles retained authority over local affairs, while Spanish administrators focused on extracting tribute and maintaining political control. Throughout the colonial period, Maya communities maintained active trading networks that connected them to each other and to the wider colonial economy. Salt from coastal lagoons, honey from forest apiaries, cotton textiles woven on traditional looms. These products found markets throughout the Spanish Empire while providing economic independence that supported cultural autonomy. Maya languages not only survived the colonial period, but flourished as vehicles for preserving and transmitting cultural knowledge. Colonial missionaries created writing systems for Maya languages to facilitate Christian instruction. But Maya communities used these tools to record their own traditions and to maintain communication networks that Spanish authorities could not monitor or control. The books of Chilam Balam, written during the colonial period in Maya languages using the Latin alphabet, preserve an extraordinary range of traditional knowledge. These manuscripts contain historical chronicles, prophetic texts, astronomical tables, and ritual instructions that demonstrate the continued vitality of Maya intellectual traditions centuries after the Spanish conquest. Independence movements in the early 19th century offered new opportunities for Maya communities to assert their cultural and political autonomy. The caste war of Yucatan, which began in 1847, represented one of the most successful indigenous resistance movements in the Americas. Maya communities controlled large areas of the Yucatan Peninsula for decades, establishing their own governments and maintaining traditional ways of life. The talking crosses that inspired the caste war demonstrate the continued vitality of Maya religious traditions. These sacred objects, which Maya people believed conveyed messages from God, combined Christian symbolism with traditional Maya concepts of sacred communication. The crosses spoke in Maya languages and delivered messages that encouraged resistance to Mexican authority while promising the restoration of Maya independence. Modern Maya communities, numbering more than 6 million people across Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, represent one of the largest and most culturally vital indigenous populations in the Americas. They have preserved languages, traditions, and world-views that connect them directly to the great civilizations of the past while adapting to the realities of contemporary life. Maya farmers still practice the milpa system of agriculture that sustained their ancestors for millennia. They rotate corn, beans, and squash in forest clearings, allowing land to regenerate while producing the foods that form the basis of traditional Maya diet. These agricultural practices, refined over thousands of years, offer sustainable alternatives to industrial farming methods that are depleting soils and degrading environments worldwide. Traditional Maya medicine continues to provide health care in many communities where modern medical facilities are unavailable or unaffordable. Maya healers possess knowledge of hundreds of medicinal plants and their applications that represents centuries of accumulated experience. This knowledge is increasingly recognized by medical researchers seeking new treatments for diseases that resist conventional pharmaceutical approaches. Maya textile traditions remain among the most sophisticated and beautiful in the world. Women in communities like Santiago Atitlan in Guatemala and San Juan Chamula in Mexico continue to weave huipils with patterns that carry cultural and historical information passed down through generations. These textiles serve not only as clothing, but as expressions of identity, community affiliation, and spiritual belief. The Maya calendar systems that once regulated the timing of great ceremonies continue to guide daily life in many communities. Maya daykeepers still conduct divination ceremonies using combinations of calendar calculations and ritual procedures that have been practiced for centuries. The famous Maya prophecy, about 2012, reflected misunderstandings of Maya calendar concepts, but the calendar systems themselves remain active elements of contemporary Maya culture. Archaeological research at sites like Tikal, Palenque, and Chichen Itza has revealed the extraordinary achievements of ancient Maya civilization while providing economic opportunities for modern Maya communities. Many of the guides who lead tourists through these ancient cities are Maya people who combine archaeological knowledge with traditional stories passed down through their families. Maya languages are being revitalized through educational programs that teach literacy in native languages alongside Spanish. Radio stations broadcast in Maya languages, and internet websites provide platforms for Maya communities to share their cultures with the wider world. These efforts ensure that Maya voices will continue to be heard by future generations. The survival of Maya civilization through conquest, colonization, and centuries of oppression demonstrates the resilience of human culture when it is rooted in deep understanding of place, environment, and community. The Maya discovered truths about sustainable living, cosmic harmony, and social cooperation that remain relevant to contemporary challenges. As we reach the end of our journey through Maya history, imagine yourself in a contemporary Maya community during a traditional ceremony. The air is thick with copal incense, the same sacred smoke that rose from Maya temples 1,500 years ago. Elders speak in Maya languages that preserve words used by the builders of Tikal and Palenque. Children learn traditional dances that embody myths older than European civilization. In this timeless moment, past and present merge like morning mist rising from the forest floor. The ancestors who carved glyphs in stone and built pyramids that touched the sky are present in the voices of their descendants. The gods who received offerings in jade and gold still receive flowers and prayers from faithful hands. The calendar systems that once timed great ceremonies continue to mark the passage of sacred time. The Maya story is not one of rise and fall, but of continuity and adaptation, of cultural survival against impossible odds, of the triumph of human wisdom over the forces of destruction and forgetting. In the languages still spoken in villages throughout Mesoamerica, in the ceremonies still conducted at sacred sites, in the agricultural practices still followed in forest clearings, the ancient Maya live on. As our journey comes to an end, we carry with us the knowledge that great civilizations are not measured merely by the monuments they leave behind, but by their ability to nurture truths that transcend time. The Maya discovered that humans are not separate from nature, but part of it, that time is not linear but cyclical, that individual fulfillment comes through community responsibility, and that the sacred permeates every aspect of daily existence. These insights, carved in stone and preserved in memory, echo across the centuries, like the call of the quetzal bird at dawn. They remind us that the Maya achievement was not in building cities that could dominate nature, but in creating a civilization that could live in harmony with the forest while reaching toward the stars. In the gentle light of morning breaking over Mesoamerica, as millions of Maya people begin another day, guided by traditions older than Rome, we understand that some truths are indeed eternal. The pyramids may be overgrown with vines, the codices may have been burned, the great cities may have returned to forest, but the Maya spirit endures, in the laughter of children learning ancient songs, in the hands of weavers creating beauty from cotton and dream, in the voices of elders recounting stories that began when the world was young. The rise and fall of the Maya was never a simple story of triumph and defeat, but a complex dance of adaptation and survival, innovation and tradition, human ambition and cosmic wisdom. In this dance, which continues even today in villages and cities throughout the Maya world, we glimpse something eternal about the human spirit, its capacity to create beauty, to seek meaning, to find the sacred in the ordinary, and to endure through all the changes that time may bring. As the sun rises over the ruins of Tikal and the living communities of contemporary Maya people alike, as howler monkeys call from cecropia trees, and children walk to school, speaking languages older than any European tongue, we rest in the knowledge that the Maya story is far from over. Like the great saber tree that connects earth and heaven in Maya cosmology, their civilization sends its roots deep into the past, while stretching its branches toward a future that holds infinite possibility. In the perfect silence of dawn, when the world holds its breath between night and day, we listen for the echoes of eternity that resonate still through the Maya forest. Whispers of wisdom that speak to all humanity about the art of living beautifully upon the earth, in harmony with the rhythms of cosmos and the cycles of time that govern all existence. The Maya understood that we are not visitors to this world, but participants in its ongoing creation, partners with the gods in the great work of maintaining balance between earth and sky, darkness and light, memory and hope. This understanding, more than any pyramid or carved stela, is their greatest gift to humanity. A vision of what it means to live as conscious beings in a sacred universe, creating meaning and beauty while honoring the mystery that surrounds and sustains all life. As our journey through Maya history reaches its peaceful conclusion, we carry their wisdom forward like a sacred flame, understanding that the best way to honor the past is to learn from it, and the best way to face the future is with the knowledge that human beings are capable of extraordinary achievement when they remember that they are part of something larger and more beautiful than themselves. In the eternal moment between sleeping and waking, between yesterday and tomorrow, between the human and the divine, the Maya legacy lives on. In every act of creation, every gesture of reverence, every recognition that life itself is sacred, and every moment when we remember that we are all children of the same earth, travelers beneath the same stars, participants in the same great mystery that connects all beings in the endless dance of existence. The Maya rise and fall becomes, in the end, a meditation on the rise and fall of all human endeavor, all cultural achievement, all attempts to create meaning and beauty in a world where everything changes and nothing lasts forever. Except the eternal principles that guide conscious beings toward wisdom, compassion, and recognition of the sacred that dwells within and around us always.